Hey everyone, welcome to the investor.bet NRL round 21 try scorer projections video. Here I'm going to go through all the players that I believe are the most likely and best try scorer bets for this round. We have 16 of them, basically 2 to 3 in every game bar one of them. I'm not just going to go through and tell you which players. I'm going to share with you why I believe that player is likely to score a try and his value at their current odds. Because there's also a lot of players where they may score a try and there's the opportunity for them to score a try with the matchup they have, but then the bookmakers have them priced too short. So we're not only looking for players that are likely to score, but also those that are value in the market. We start by doing this using the bet finders, and with this try scorer matchup tab, we can analyze where teams score their tries and where their opposition concedes tries, and quickly identify the best matchups in the game, which then I go through and research those situations and those players more in depth to find not only the ones that have proven well on the season, but that are also performing well in recent times. So for the first game of the round, we have the Roosters versus Storm. This column here shows us where the Roosters score their tries by position. You've got the average try scores per game and where that ranks in the whole NRL. Obviously, if they rank number 1, they score more tries through that position than any other team. If they rank 17th, which you can see the Cowboys do on the interchange, they score the least tries through that position of any team. Then right next to it, you've got the opponent tries against. This for this game is where the Melbourne Storm concede their tries. If you see a high ranking here, so 1, 2, 3, that means they concede very few tries through that position of their opponent in terms of relation to the whole league. If you see a red number or a very low ranking, so like your 16s, 15s, they concede quite a lot of tries in comparison to the rest of the league and right towards the most, especially if obviously you see a 17 there. So we can go through, quickly identify good matchups. So at the right wing for the Roosters, we've got 1st versus 12th. We can dig a little bit deeper into that situation. Whereas here, the Roosters rank 3rd in tries through the front row, but the Storm give up the least tries to the opponent front row. Similar to the second row, the Roosters, they rank 14th, so they score very few tries through the second row, and the Storm give up the least number of tries, and they haven't given up a try to a second rower all season long. So in this situation, you want to avoid the Roosters' second rowers in this game because straight away it's a bad situation for them. And we can look better for the better situation. So we go through and do that for every single team. And then I'm going to go through all the reasons why I've selected the players that I have. Let's start with the Thursday night game, Roosters versus Storm. Storm obviously losing last week. There's a big chance that they hit back here with a win. This season, they're averaging 41 points after a loss. You can see 41 points scored and their points conceded drops from 20 to 14. So I am expecting Melbourne to win this game. But in terms of try scorers, there's 1 I want to take for the Roosters and 2 I'm going to take for the Melbourne Storm. Firstly, for the Roosters, as I mentioned before, at the right wing position this week is Mark Nawaqanitawase. He's $2.05 at Bet365. Melbourne ranked 12th overall, and they've conceded to the opponent right winger in 6 of the last 7 games. Nawaqanitawase has scored in 2 of his last 4 games, and this will be his first game against Melbourne. And whilst Melbourne's defense on the opposite side of the field isn't great and they're ranked 16th overall, I really do like this matchup here on the right wing, and that's the way that I'm preferring to go, particularly considering he is better odds than Daniel Tupou, who's playing on the left wing, and Nawaqanitawase has been very consistent over that side throughout the season so far. So at better than even money, happy to have him as the first selection. In terms of this matchup on the left wing, Melbourne have only conceded in 1 of their last 4 games to the opponent left wing. So hasn't been showing up as much consistently compared to 6 of the last 7 on the opposite side of the field. So if the Roosters are smart, they want to win this game, expect them to attack to the right a little bit more often. We're also going to play the wings for Melbourne. So we're going to take the right wing and also the left wing for slightly different reasons. Firstly, on the right wing, Grant Anderson. He is $2.20 at Neds. Roosters have conceded to the right winger in 2 of their last 3 games. And Grant Anderson has scored a double in both games previously against the Roosters. So at $2.20, happy to play him. It's also the worst side defensively for the Roosters. They rank 12th on their left edge defense compared to 3rd for their right edge defense. But I'm also going to play Xavier Coates, who's $1.91 at Bet365. It is his 100th game this week. The Storm, if they do run up a bit of a score 30 plus points, then I expect they'll look to give him some opportunities, especially if they are winning the game, being it a milestone game. The Roosters have conceded to the left wing in 2 of the last 4 games, a total of 3 tries, and he has scored 8 tries in his last 5 games against the Roosters, and he's coming off a hat-trick last week in the game against the Seagulls, and that is also his second hat-trick across his last 4 games. So when he scores plenty, and we just need him for the 1 try. And at $1.91, I think that is definitely a reasonable enough price. It's nothing too crazy like we can often see for him at $1.60 or sometimes even less. There are other options for the Storm as well, but those are the 2 players that I'm going to go with, so Anderson and Coates. Did look closely because this is a pretty good matchup at fullback here, which is Nick Meaney this week. However, even though the Roosters have the 12th ranking, they have only conceded to the fullback in 1 of the last 8 games, with a lot of these tries coming back early on in the season. Also did definitely like the halves option for Melbourne. However, I'm not going to play it. With Cam Munster out, Tyron Wishart comes into the halves alongside Jerome Hughes, which puts more responsibility on Hughes in this game. And I believe that just takes a little bit away from his ability to score a try. But he has scored in 3 of his last 4 against the Roosters, and 5 tries in total across those 4 games. And the Roosters have conceded to a half in 7 of the last 11 games, a total of 8 tries. And they have a 16th ranking, so that's obviously contributing to that. If Munster was playing, then Hughes would likely be a bet, and it would probably replace Coates with Hughes. However, that's not going to be the case this week. Next game, we have the Cowboys versus Dragons. We've got 3 plays in this game, and from this point forward through the rest of the round, it's going to be kind of a low outlay because I recommend everyone to back these plays to win the same amount regardless of the selection. And so you're always betting to win either 1 or 1.5 units depending on your personal risk tolerance. And so that means that the higher the odds, the lower the stake you're having on that selection. And what it also means, if we have 2 try scorers in one game, and there's one at the shorter odds and there's one at the longer odds, if the player at the shorter odds, particularly if they are under even money, then if that player scores a try, then you're guaranteed profit on the game. For this matchup, we're going first for the Cowboys. Scott Drinkwater at fullback. On paper, looks a really good matchup. The Dragons give up the most tries to any team to the opponent fullback, but they have only given up 1 of their last 5 games tries to the fullback. So that's a little bit concerning. However, Drinkwater is in great form. He's scored in 3 of his last 4 games and has also scored in 3 of his last 4 against the Dragons, and he's paying $2.50 at Bet365. I think there's enough value in there to take him as a selection. Wouldn't take anything under than $2.30. That'd be my absolute minimum, but at $2.50, I think there's enough in there to make it a play. On the right wing as well for the Cowboys is another decent option. Robert Derby is lighting up there. The Dragons have conceded to the right wing in 3 of the last 4 games, but he has only scored in 1 of his last 5. This will be his first game against the Dragons. I'm not going to play him this week at the prices, so just going Drinkwater as the only selection for North Queensland. Then for the Dragons, we have 2 plays also going after the fullback here, which is Clint Gutherson. He's $2.85 at Neds. The Cowboys rank 14th overall and have conceded to the opponent fullback in 5 of their last 6 games for a total of 7 tries. Clint Gutherson hasn't scored in his last 6 and hasn't scored in his last 5 against the Cowboys. So I really don't love that form, but I think he'll be lurking around and get opportunities in this game, and at close to $3 is worth playing just due to the amount of tries the Cowboys have been conceding and the amount of line breaks North Queensland give up as well. He can just be backing up for the offload. When somebody makes a line break, he should get his opportunity to score. And I think if it is to happen, that'll be the way. Otherwise, maybe off a kick. So not the highest confidence play of the round, but happy to make him a selection. There are like a few ways you can go with the Dragons. For Gutherson, I was somewhat in between taking him and then Corey Allen as the left wing. However, $2.85 for Gutherson and then down to like about even money for Corey Allen. when it's similar statistics for both of them, I prefer to go with the higher odds selection there. Then the other play for the Dragons is in the second row. This is also where the Cowboys give up the most tries of any team in the league. We're going with Jaden Stewart, $5.50 at Bet365. The Cowboys rank last overall and have conceded to the second rower in 6 of the last 7 games, including 4 straight. Obviously, there's 3 players to choose from. You've got the 2 starting second rows and the lock. However, Sua is the one I want to go with ahead of Leilua and DeBellin. Sua has scored in 3 of his last 5 games and has also scored in 2 of his last 3 against the Cowboys. So at $5.50, it's definitely a good play for this matchup. Obviously, you could just take Sua and Drinkwater and one from each side, but also for the mains and official selections, happy to include Gutherson. Broncos versus Eels. 2 plays in this game. They're going to be both on the Broncos side of things. And we know the Broncos love to go left. They're the number 1 left edge attack compared to 13th on the right-hand side of the field. We're going to stick with that, and we're going to play both the left wing and left center. So firstly, Josiah Karapani, he's $1.80 at Bet365 on that left wing. The Eels have conceded to the opponent left winger in the last 5 games in a row, total of 8 tries, and Karapani has scored in 4 of his 5 games this season, a total of 6 tries, just missing in the game against the Titans. He has played previously 1 game against the Eels but didn't score in it, but at $1.80 I think is a really good bet and one of the strongest selections. When you can get close to even money, like $1.80, I was fairly close to it. We're not looking at $1.55, $1.60. When you've got the number 1 versus number 17 matchup, that's generally really good, particularly when you've got strong recent form backing it up. He's definitely in my top 2 selections for try scorers this week in terms of confidence. And then at the center position on that left side, we're going Gahama Shibasagi at $2.10 at TAB. The Eels do rank 10th, so they're not too bad against the left center and have only conceded to that position in 1 of the last 5 games. But Shibasaki loves playing at Sunk. He scored in 3 of his last 4 games and has scored a total of 6 tries as well. Yet to score in 3 games against Parramatta, but would be surprised if he doesn't score, at least get chances and plenty of opportunities to score a try in this game. So those are going to be the 2 selections for the Broncos. Just quickly touching on a couple of other players. At fullback, you have Reece Walsh. Just want to note for you guys that the Eels haven't conceded to the opponent fullback in their last 10 games. That's not to say Walsh isn't going to score a try here. It's just, in my opinion, it's not worth backing him to score a try. And then also in the halves, was somewhat close to playing Ezra Mam here. The Eels have conceded to the opponent half in 4 of the last 5 games. Mam has scored in 3 straight games against Parramatta. He's just around the $2.70 mark, just a little bit too short. That was the best price I could find. Other places is $2.25, $2.30, which I think is far too short. If I was getting over $3, then he would be a play. Also in the halves, you also have Adam Reynolds, who as well has a great record against Parramatta. He scored in 4 of his last 5 games against them, but hasn't been in like great try scoring form this season. I saw around the $4 mark for him, which I don't think is a bad play. It is still not a great deal of value there. Considering his form this season, and you're putting a lot of weight into the opponent. No plays for the Eels. Warriors versus Titans. For the Warriors, we just have the 1 play. There's a few ways you can go, considering the Titans are the worst defensive team in the competition. Initially was heading towards this right side because that's the worst side defensively for the Titans. They rank 17th in the comp at defending the right center and right wing combined, most of that coming through the right wing, but they still rank 16th to the right center as well. On that right wing is Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. He has scored in 3 of his last 5 games and also in 2 of his last 3 against Gold Coast. But even though the Titans rank last to that position, they haven't conceded to the opponent winger in their last 6 games. So it shows you how bad they were earlier on in the season, and they've cleaned it up a little bit. And Watene-Zelezniak was pretty short this game, well under the $1.80 mark. So I'm not going to make him a play. Also did look at the right center, which is expected to be Kurt Capewell. The Titans have conceded more to this position lately, 4 of their last 6 games. But Capewell, even though he scored in his last 2 games against the Titans, he's only scored in 2 games this season. So it's been very inconsistent, and I don't think there's much value there in his current price. But wouldn't be surprised if either one of those players score in this game at all. But I am going to play on the left wing, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. He's $1.72 at Bet365. The Titans have conceded to the left wing in 2 of their last 3 games. So even though they rank 8th, which isn't too bad, it's definitely on the decline. Tuivasa-Sheck has scored in 2 of his last 3 games and scored in 3 of his last 5 at home, and has also scored in 2 of his last 5 against Gold Coast. At $1.72, happy to make him a play. There's not, once again, a huge amount of value in his current price, but of the Warriors players to score a try, I'm happy to take him. You might remember from last week, if you followed along, we had Halasima. We've had him 2 weeks in a row, and he scored near enough to the final play of the game in definitely last week against Newcastle, and then the week before against the West Tigers. But not going to play him this week. The market has definitely caught up to him. We're getting close to $4 the past couple of weeks, or around that $4 mark for him. And now he's well under $2, like in the low 2s. It is on paper for the season a fairly good matchup for the second rowers here for the Warriors. However, Gold Coast have only conceded to a second rower in 1 of their last 7 games. So this area is definitely on the improve for them compared to what it was earlier on in the season. So just going with Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Then for the Titans, we're going left wing. That's this matchup right here. Certainly the worst side defensively for the Warriors. And for the Titans to have any hope, which it's going to be very tough for them to win this game regardless, they need to be going towards the left. And on that left wing is expected to be Philip Sami. He's $2.45. He got a try last week and has scored in 2 of his last 3 games. That $2.45 is at Neds. The Warriors have conceded to the opponent left winger in 6 straight games. And for a player for the Titans who scored in 2 of his last 3, and that's the way they should be attacking here, I'm very happy to take around $2.50 for him. I think there's a decent amount of value. Titans, whilst they give up plenty of points, they generally score around 3 tries per game, and he should get his opportunity. Has only scored in 1 of his last 4 against the Warriors, but I think this is a game where he can get a try. They have Jalen DeGru on the opposite side of the field. He got a double last week. Titans score their tries on the edges. You can see they rank 3rd in the league for tries through the winger. So that's where they get the majority of their tries. Other than that, it's through the halves for the most part. But Sami at $2.45 at Neds, he'll be the other selection in that game. Panthers versus West Tigers. Just the one play in this game, and it's on the Panthers side of things, and we're going with the player who got a hat-trick earlier this season in his only game against the Tigers, and that's on the left wing, Thomas Jenkins. We've got 3rd versus 16th. The Tigers have conceded to the opponent left winger in their last 8 games in a row. Jenkins has scored in 6 of his past 9 games, and also, as I said, got a hat-trick earlier this season against the Tigers. They'll obviously be fully aware of that defensively, but I think this Panthers attack should still be able to get him a try, if not a couple. He's $1.62 at Bet365, and whilst it is pretty short, it looks very likely he'll score a try. The Tigers are very good at defending the right-hand side of the field, number 1 overall, but not so great on the left edge. Expect that's the way the Panthers look to attack, just like they did about a month and a half ago when they played the Tigers. So he's going to be the only selection. Did look at the fullback, Dylan Edwards, coming off a double last week, but has only scored in 3 of his 11 games this season. Tigers conceded to the fullback in 2 of the last 3 games, but Edwards hasn't really got a good record against West, so I'm going to leave him out and just go with the 1 selection there for Penrith. It was a low-scoring game when they met recently, and Jenkins being the only try scorer for Penrith, I'm just happy to stick with that and not overcomplicate that game. Tigers off a big emotional win at home last week. I don't think they were going to be able to back it up with a big performance. They may get 1 or 2 tries, but I don't see them conceding all that much to the Panthers side, who have definitely stepped up their defensive numbers. I spoke about it in the round preview when we went through the matchups and the teams, that Penrith are only conceding 11.3 points a game in this 6-game win streak they're on. And I think, the Tigers are going to struggle to find too many points. So not going to take any selections for them. Also not going to take any selections for the Rabbitohs. They're going to be going to the left pretty much non-stop in this game. The only real thing they're playing now for through the rest of the season is, well, other than to avoid the wooden spoon, is to get Alex Johnston the try-scoring record. On the left wing, he has a really good matchup this week. However, the Sharks have only conceded to the left wing in 2 of the last 6. Johnston has scored in 6 of his last 8 games and also 3 of his last 5 against the Sharks. But Sharks defense has definitely stepped up. They were very good against the Roosters and very good against the Dolphins. The Rabbitohs attack is a lot lower quality compared to those two teams. And I think South Sydney are going to struggle to score here. They're very predictable in terms of just going left so often that the Sharks should be able to shut it down. If Latrell Mitchell was in at fullback here, then I probably would have played Johnston, but without him, I'm happy to leave it out. But the interesting thing is, on that left side of the field, so as I said, Johnston has scored in 6 of his last 8 games. The 2 games that he didn't score, Tallis Duncan, who plays left center, got doubles in both of those games. So it's likely if Rabbitohs get 2 tries, one of those 2 players is going to score. One of them, in my opinion, is extremely likely. So you could potentially look to half stake both of them or something like that. But for me, I'm just happy to leave it alone. I don't think it's worthwhile. For the Sharks, there's a couple of ways we could go here, but in my opinion, just a few of these Sharks players are just too short to score tries with the consistency that they have this season. So firstly, at fullback, Will Kennedy. In my opinion, he's too short at his current price in the low 2s. For me, I need $3 plus in order to back him to score a try. But the Rabbitohs do concede a lot. They're 15th and have conceded to the fullback in 4 of the last 7 games. And Kennedy has picked up his try scoring form a little bit lately in 2 of his last 4, and also scored earlier this season back in round 3 against the Rabbitohs, but just at the odds can't back him. Same situation for the 2 wingers for the Sharks. Ronaldo Mulitalo on the left wing. Rabbitohs, this is the worst side defensively, but Mulitalo not really having the greatest season. He hasn't scored in his last 5 games, but does have a decent record against the Rabbitohs, scoring in 4 of his last 5. But at around the $1.60, $1.70 mark, I'm just a little bit too short in order to make him a bet. And then on the right wing, you also have Sione Katoa, who has scored in 5 straight against the Rabbitohs. So that looks great, but once again, it's just extremely short. And whilst they may score tries, whether it's worth backing, in my opinion, based on what I do, it's just not worthwhile. So for this game, I'm going to play the halves, and I'm going to take both Nicho Hynes and Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Nicho Hynes is $3.50 at TAB. Braden Trindle is $3.60 at Bet365. So basically, both around the same price. If one of them scores a try, you profit on the game. Rabbitohs have conceded to an opponent half in 6 of the last 7 games. Nicho Hynes has scored in 3 of his last 4, and also scored earlier this season against the Rabbitohs. And then Braden Trindle, he's scored in 2 of his last 5 and has scored in 4 of his last 5 against the Rabbitohs. There's a chance like they both score tries in this game, but I think one of them should definitely get a try. Those Sharks halves are often happy to run the ball close to the line instead of trying to throw a short ball to a second rower or a front rower who then gets hammered in the line. They're happy to go themselves. Braden Trindle is probably one of the better players at scoring off kicks as well and chasing through grubbers and that kind of thing. So yeah, those are going to be the 2 plays for this game, both in the halves. Not something I do that often. That's how I think that's the best way of approaching that game. Then on Sunday, first game is Raiders versus Knights. 2 plays here, both for the Raiders. Firstly, in the halves, we're going with Ethan Strange. He's $3.60 at Bet365. Newcastle have conceded to an opponent half in 2 of the last 4 games. Ethan Strange has scored in 4 of his last 6 and has also scored 3 tries in his last 3 home games, plus scored back in round 17 about a month ago against Newcastle. Happy to take him at $3.60, especially considering Newcastle don't really give up many tries to the opponent backline. They give up hardly anything to the opponent left center and left wing, and then very few tries to the opposite side of the field as well. So looking for other ways to target this, particularly with the Raiders at home, a very high scoring side, particularly there. And yeah, Ethan Strange is going to be the first selection. Then in the second row, where the Raiders score more tries than any team, we're going Hudson Young, who's $2.30 at TAB. Newcastle have conceded to a second rower in 6 of the last 7 games. So this ranking is definitely on the decline. He hasn't scored in his last 3 games, but has scored in 6 of the 8 games prior to that. And this is a good opportunity for him to get back on the board. Has also got a good record against Newcastle, scoring in 5 of his last 7 games against them. So Ethan Strange, 360 at Bet365, and Hudson Young, 230 at TAB are the two selections for the Raiders Knights game. Not going with any players here for the night. And then the final game, just the one selection in this game. For the Bulldogs, the only real way I could really go is on the right wing through Jacob Carraz. But the Seagulls haven't been giving up that many tries to the opponent right winger recently, so it's not really a good matchup. The somewhat more recent better matchup is on the left wing, which is expected to be Tuala, who has yet to score a try this season. But this is where the Seagulls have been giving up tries recently, conceding in 3 of the last 4 games, obviously giving up a hat-trick to Xavier Coates on that left wing last week. But I'm not going to play anyone for the Bulldogs. For the Seagulls, we're going left wing, and that is Ruben Garrick, who's $2.30 at Neds. Bulldogs, they've conceded to the opponent left wing in 3 of the last 5 games. Garrick has scored a try in 4 straight games for a total of 6 of them. And he's also scored in 3 of his last 4 against the Bulldogs. Those were played at center. Now he's on the left wing at the moment, but has been scoring there recently. So I don't think it's an issue at all. And you've got that little bit of extra benefit of having scored previously. Not that with it being in a different position, it doesn't matter as much. But he'll be the final play of the round. So I'll quickly recap all the selections. Roosters, Storm, Mark Noah, Quinitawaza, $2.05 at Bet365. Grant Anderson, $2.20 at Neds, and Xavier Coates, $1.91 at Bet365. Cowboys, Scott Drinkwater, $2.50 at Bet365. Dragons at fullback, Clint Gutherson, $2.85 at Neds, and in the second row, Jaden Sewer at $5.50 at Bet365. For the Broncos, Josiah Karapani, $1.80 at Bet365, and at left center, Jahamet Shibasar, $2.10 at TAB. No plays for the Eels. One play for the Warriors, and that is Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, $1.72 at Bet365. And for the Titans on the left wing, Philip Sami at $2.45 at Neds. For the Panthers on the left wing, Thomas Jenkins, $1.62 at Bet365. No plays for the Tigers, no plays for the Rabbitohs. For the Sharks, Nico Hines, $3.50 in the halves at TAB. And the same for Braden Trindle, $3.60 at Bet365. Then for the Raiders, Ethan Strange in the halves, $3.60 at Bet365, and Hudson Young in the second row at $2.30 at TAB. No plays for the Knights, no plays for the Bulldogs, and for the Seagulls, Ruben Garrick on the left wing, $2.30 at Neds. So those are all the try scorer selections for this week. Remember, you can use all these tools for yourself. Go through, look at the try scorer trends, see where players have been scoring tries, where they've been getting doubles, all that kind of thing. Plus use some of the bet finder tools to analyze team performance, see where they perform a lot better or where they perform worse. Obviously here with the Melbourne Storm, I spoke about how after a loss, their points per game jumps from 26.1 after a win to 41 after a loss. They also concede 6 points less than on average, and their meters per point conceded jumps from 98 all the way to 370. So that's the situation they're in this week. But as an away favorite, they average slightly more and do concede slightly more, which we've seen this season. So there's lots of different ways you can use this information to determine what bets you're putting on. There's a stack of other tools in there as well. So definitely check it out, use it for the rest of the season, and see how it impacts the amount of bets you win and the profit that you make from your bets. I can definitely assure you that it'll make a difference in the results that you're seeing from your NRL bets. And most importantly, you're going to be making better decisions with where you're investing your money each weekend. Plus, when you combine that with the overall strategy, then you've got the double fold approach that will set you up for long-term consistent profits. So that's the game plan for this weekend. Remember, there's already the full round preview post on the channel in the best bets area. That's where I post everything, my final selections and why I'm taking those final selections for the full game bets. And then other things happening, obviously we've got the AFL. We're still going at about 60% win rate on the AFL this season. And then coming up this weekend, we've got the horse racing on Saturday. My goal for horse racing by the end of the year, I've spoken about it previously, is to get to the 500 units profit. Right now, we're closing in, or about 270 units profit. If we keep hitting the 10 units a week, we'll achieve it by the end of the year. And coming through is the Spring Carnival starting in a couple of months. The good horses are going to start returning in the next couple of weeks. And we've got the Spring Carnival and then through the summer up to the end of the year. The best year I've ever gotten on racing is just over 600 units. I don't think we're going to quite get to that this year unless go on a really big run to end the year. But the point of it is you don't want to change your strategy and go chasing to try and hit certain milestones. It's about knowing what you're doing on a consistent basis that's working. And for me, what I do in racing has worked for over a decade, and just keeping on following that process and know each week when you look at the long term averages right on 10 units profit. And if you're betting $50, that's $500 a week that you're making when you zoom out. So it's a very profitable way to bet. If you're betting $100 units, then you're making $1,000 a week. So combining racing with sports gives you a really good overall strategy. It shows the bookmakers you're betting across multiple different things and you're not just an expert on one area as well, which is also beneficial for not only the sustainability of your accounts in terms of having promotions, but also with them letting you bet on sports, because the bookmakers still have the ability to limit how much you bet on sports when you're winning too much. And if they see that you're always profiting on the NRL or whatever sport you really like to focus on, then they can minimize your bets. But if your account has bets across racing and across other sports as well, then that's a lot less obvious to them. Obviously, they could see that maybe you're profiting a lot more on NRL. However, if you can set it up where you're profiting on other things as well, then it's an overall better situation. So that being said, hope you guys have a great weekend. Good luck with all your bets. Thanks for following on the channel through the season. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any other videos through the rest of the year. And I'll see you guys in the next video.